The time, 8 p.m., June 5th, 2010. A pair of supercells are firing off back in northeastern Indiana. These would set its eyes on Lake Township, Ohio. As these storms progressed over into northwestern Ohio, they quickly became tornadic, posing the threat of damaging winds, large hail, and a strong tornado, that of which occurred an EF4 tornado. As we move farther along into the night, 9:05 p.m., around 8:55 to 9:05 p.m., multiple tornado warnings are issued, one of which would soon produce a large, strong, and destructive EF4 tornado at 10 p.m. in Lake Township, Ohio. The storms would soon move offshore and begin to die out over water. And now a bit more on the forecasting side of things of what led to the devastating June 5th, 2010 forgotten tornado outbreak. This is the day one outlook, and this is from forecaster Broyles, the man, the myth, the legend, with a large moderate risk of severe weather in place, extending from portions of northeastern Missouri and parts of southeastern Iowa, all the way back into portions of western Pennsylvania. Now, this system was not very well forecasted. This is the day 3 outlook right here, and you can tell it only had 2 slight risks, one of which in the northeast, and one that did not even encompass areas that saw the most devastating severe weather. By the day 2 outlook, we did have a very large slight risk, but still did not encompass areas that would see some of the more significant severe weather. And this is the day 2 probabilistic outlook, and we had a 30% risk of storms, of severe storms in play across a very large area. And this is the updated day 2 outlook later, and you can tell they ended up dropping an area back there in portions of Pennsylvania, and that definitely would turn out to be a mistake on the forecasting side of things, as that is an area that did see some pretty significant severe weather. This is the day 2 probabilistic outlook updated, and they actually did end up adding a hatched area, indicating significant severe weather was looking possible. And this is the day 1 outlook. We had a moderate risk across areas that weren't even in the day 3 slight risk. If we go ahead and take it back, I want you to remember this right here. So keep that fresh in your mind. And here's our moderate risk. If we had places that weren't even in a risk for our day 3 and a day 1 moderate, 10% tornado risk within our greatest area, but a widespread area with a tornado risk, 45% wind, and 30% hail. This was looking to be a derecho setup. Later in our day 1 outlook, we did end up getting this next update. This was later in the day around our 8 a.m. update, where we currently did actually have storms ongoing. We did have storms ongoing back here in portions of Missouri and Iowa. These storms, which would start to move off and our severe risk, did end up dying down, and it did just end up turning to rain showers, and no further warnings were issued. But this was just remnants, and just showing that no matter what happens early in the day, there can still be a big day behind that. And this is our updated outlook, like I said. And our moderate risk did get extended into portions of Pennsylvania here, with our 10% tornado risk still being in play, 45% wind that is hatched all the way back into Pennsylvania now, and our 30% hail risk, mainly where we expected supercells to fire. This is one of our early morning mesoscale discussions that we did get. This was that the severe thunderstorm potential may increase through the mid-morning hour or the remainder of the morning. Severe potential may increase through the remainder of the morning, with severe hail and gust being possible. And this is later on. The Storm Prediction Center did decide to issue a new mesoscale discussion back here in the Northeast. This was a severe potential watch being likely, and it indicated that a cumulus field was expanding rapidly over the higher terrain of upstate New York. Within this destabilizing air mass, a few showers have already developed, and current thinking is isolated thunderstorms will evolve over the next few hours, and the conditions are quite favorable for discrete supercells. So this was looking quite dangerous across this area. Damaging winds and tornadoes could occur with any supercell that was stated. And right after that mesoscale discussion was issued, we did get our new outlook, and this had minimal changes to it. Like, quite literally no changes, and that is why I did not include any of our other outlook risk, like the tornado, wind, and hail risk, because it literally had no changes whatsoever to it. So that explains that portion. And here's our newest MD, which was stating that a severe thunderstorm watch was likely across portions of Indiana into portions of Ohio, Pennsylvania, and the remnant mesoscale vortex from overnight convection is shearing, and it left over convective debris, and it slowed down boundary layer heating downstream over the Ohio Valley, but thunderstorm activity is beginning to increase, and this was going to continue with surface heating. And it appears that the primary convective mode would be multi-cell clusters and line segments. However, isolated supercells were going to be possible. Damaging winds were going to be the more likely threat, with a organizing squall line. And this was at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. The Storm Prediction Center issued the first tornado watch of the day, with this being several tornadoes likely, widely scattered damaging winds, with some winds exceeding 70 miles an hour in isolated areas, and scattered large hail up to 2 inches possible. The discussion: discrete storms are beginning to develop over the higher terrain in New York. Air masses become moderately unstable and should destabilize further with additional heating and weak cooling aloft. Upper level defluence spreading into the area should help initiate more storms through the afternoon, and the deep layer shear is supportive of discrete supercells. Though large hail is likely to be the main threat, the combination of strong speed shear in the lower 1 to 2 kilometers and a moist boundary layer indicates a supercell or two may produce tornadoes. And this is as we head throughout the rest of the afternoon in portions of the Northeast. We would see some storms fire, but no storms really were able to get going up here and were able to produce a tornado, with the exception of a storm all the way back here up in portions of Maine. We did end up getting a tornado warning out of this storm, but that storm did not do anything too crazy. It moved offshore, and really the severe threat had died down as we head into the 7 o'clock hour. Later, after our tornado watch was issued, the Storm Prediction Center decided to issue a new tornado watch. Or not tornado watch, a new severe thunderstorm watch. This included places like Dayton, Mansfield, Canton, Columbus, all the way out towards Philadelphia, and all the way back towards Indianapolis. So this was a very large watch, but this was not one of the largest watches we had. The threats were hail up to 2 inches in diameter and thunderstorm wind gusts up to 80 miles an hour are going to be possible in that area. This is a look as we head throughout the rest of the afternoon in this area. we actually, whenever this watch got issued, we did have tornado warnings ongoing, which would further be allowed to expire shortly after. And, well, I did want to point out here that we did end up getting a tornado watch later, and here in a few moments we will go over that. Soon enough, the SPC decided to issue a new mesoscale discussion, and this indicated that we had an enhanced zone for supercells, but like we already saw, that risk really never did get going in the northeast, thankfully, with the lone exception being a singular tornado warning in eastern Maine. Thank goodness the risk in the northeast did not get going as planned, otherwise we would have had even more problems on our hands. This is a look at how the rest of the evening played out back here in portions of eastern Ohio. Our storms would eventually move out and all watches would be dropped, but soon enough we would see more storms initiate and start to push their way into portions of eastern Ohio and western Pennsylvania, in which here in a moment we will go over what those storms ended up doing. Not too long after, we did end up getting a new mesoscale discussion, which stated a watch would be likely needed this afternoon, if not before, across portions of the middle Mississippi Valley, as an increase in convective development is ongoing. The significant intensification and increase in severe potential may still be hours away. Now, the western part of this MD did not really see much action, but storms really did start to get going towards the eastern half of the mesoscale discussion. And this is a look at the new outlook that we got shortly after that MD. And the only addition was a 10% hatch tornado risk being issued. And you will see here the wording given by Broyles was the only change to the outlook is to add a significant tornado probability area from southeast Iowa across north central Illinois, where low-level shear will rapidly increase late this afternoon into the evening, will develop 65 to 80 knot mid-level jet, will approach the moderate risk area, with conditions becoming favorable for a significant severe weather late this afternoon to the evening across the Ohio Valley. And I thought I would just let you guys see these MDs that really never did pan out, along with the tornado watch that was issued, which thought that we could be seeing hail up to 2 inches in diameter, thunderstorm wind gusts up to 70 miles an hour, and dangerous lightning being possible. This really did not pan out, but later in the night, a similar watch would be issued that kind of did have a more significant side to it. This mesoscale discussion, it didn't really pan out either, as it said that the severe threat was still ongoing, but considerable amount of convection overturning has occurred across much of the area. So more concentrated thunderstorm activity had shifted. So just overall, the threat really did not get going in the afternoon. And then we soon did get a tornado watch back here in portions of Iowa, Missouri, and Illinois. Now, I did want to go ahead, although the watch was issued at 3:10 p.m., I did want to go ahead and show you guys here around 2 o'clock. Storms were already ongoing across a very large area. They were not very intense, but they definitely were ongoing. And here soon, it did take a while for the watch to load on here, but it did finally end up loading as the storms began to move into the area, and one storm did quickly become severe warned. This one really stuck out early as what we thought definitely could be a big time storm, and it really never did evolve until later though, as this did become a bit messy and a bit unorganized, kind of clustery, as the storms, they didn't really lack definition. They definitely were a bunch of clustered supercells together, but it's just that clustering did limit the tornado risk. We did get a tornado warning that it actually ended up producing multiple tornado warnings and led to a bit of a higher severe threat with some more storms. And then those ended up pushing off to the east, and the severe threat started to shift to the east quickly. This is a new MD that ended up coming out later, and it was showing that the severe threat was diminishing early across that watch area, and that thunderstorms had been decreasing in intensity, and that all weather forecast offices, if not all, all the watches should be canceled. Although the severe threat may ramp up later this evening, and that would be addressed in the forthcoming day one outlook, and that for sure was. This was a pretty interesting MD that did get issued, and it was that a watch was likely coming soon, as the air mass had recovered in wake of the early day storms, and the thunderstorms had been increasing. Activity will probably extend downstream into parts of Indiana throughout the evening, so that is why we did get this MD. And as we headed farther, this is where that tornado watch did get canceled, as the remaining area for a strong storm or two for those tornado watches would be allowed to expire as the severe threat was dying down. And this is when we did get our tornado watch back here in portions of Illinois and Indiana, with several tornadoes, with isolated intense tornadoes being possible, widely scattered damaging winds, and isolated gusts up to 70 miles an hour, and scattered large hail with isolated hail up to 2 inches in diameter being possible. This is a look when that tornado watch did get issued, and things were really starting to pop off at this time. Back here in portions of Illinois, multiple tornado warnings were ongoing, those of which would actually be long track tornado warnings and produce a few tornadoes, a few of which were strong tornadoes. And the real show had already begun, and it really did not die down. This did end up heading over into portions of central and eastern Indiana, and that is where more problems began to get caused, and the worst was soon to come. And this was the newest SPC outlook that they did address the severe threat, and it really had few changes apart from dropping our western risk and our northeastern risk, as the severe threats were dying down. But we still had a 10% hatched tornado risk, 45% hatched wind risk, and our hail risk did not change. So, just for the record, that did not change whatsoever. And as we head later, this was a very concerning mesoscale discussion that did get issued. And it was that the highest probability for tornadoes was going to be in that black area, and that red area was the valid tornado watches, and that blue area was the more isolated severe threat, but severe risk was still there. That really did not materialize back here in this blue area, but this really materialized, this black area. And a watch was possible up here in southern Michigan, and there was that increasing threat for supercells, and that definitely panned out. Not across this area, but just to the south, that for sure panned out. This is where things started to go south for Lake Township, though, as we had our major tornado that went through as an EF4 rated tornado. And we already discussed this at the start of the video, but I did want to go over it again. And it was that we had these pairs of supercells pushing through, quickly became tornado warned after forming, and became long track supercells before moving offshore. And the severe threat finally was dying down, so they thought, but they would later get hit by some more damaging winds and large hail. And after having to recover from a very strong tornado and getting hammered again, we have seen this before, but it is not a good thing to watch. And sadly, the wording for this came out a bit too late. 10 minutes after the tornado occurred is whenever we got the tornado watch out for a very large area. So we weren't even under a tornado watch and got hit by a very large tornado. Nonetheless, the night was still just getting started for many people as the eyes turned to the rest of the storms, as tornadoes, large hail, and damaging winds were definitely looking possible into this area. We did get a very small 8-county tornado watch back here in portions of Michigan. And then later, we ended up getting a MD that was addressing the increasing severe threat across the overnight hours. And here we are going to switch over to radar and how that looked. And this is as that tornado watch was issued and storms began to move over into the viewing area. You can see the people of Township, or I should say Lake Township, did get hit once again later with some damaging winds, and yet again another tornado warning that luckily did not end up producing a tornado, but they did get under another tornado warning. Severe threat was still going on throughout the overnight hours. Luckily, it was starting to go down some. We did get some isolated severe thunderstorms as we head throughout the rest of the night. But overall, the severe risk had been dying down, which was a good thing. But it did kick up a bit more into the morning hours. And what we mean by kicked up into the morning hours is with this MD, like I said, we ended up getting a new tornado watch that got issued at 2:05 a.m. And we had saw that pop up. And this, I put one of the largest MDs ever. Yeah, this was a very large MD, extending all the way from portions of western Indiana all the way back into southern New York. Yes, you heard me right. Across that whole brown area, we saw a very large mesoscale discussion. It was that the severe threat for Tornado Watch 268 and 270 continued, and the severe threat was shifting eastward across the watch areas, and mesoanalysis showed low over the northwestern Ohio, portions of northern and northwestern Ohio, and that tornadoes were still going to be possible in this area. And as we head even later, we did end up getting a new mesoscale discussion addressing the severe threat continuing, with additional or a replacement watch being needed before the scheduled expiration, and that did ended up getting issued. As you can tell, here is another very large watch extending from portions of southern New York back into portions of western Ohio just outside of Dayton. So this was a very long day for meteorologists, and thoughts and prayers go out to all those who were affected, all the families affected by these storms. And this is just the last look at the rest of those storms as they push through the areas. Did not get many more severe warnings. Did get one more tornado warning, but apart from that, all the watches were further allowed to expire. And thankfully, our severe risk was done for all those areas. And this is just a look at all the storm reports that we had. And we had 87 total reports, or 187, pardon me, 187 total reports, with 67 of those being tornado reports. Yes, I just said 67. Okay. I know people are going to go crazy over it, but most of which were across a very, similar area, across a line, almost. And I did decide to bring out the pen to address this here, but we can tell here, we did have a few tornado reports back here in the Northeast, but you can tell our main tornado risk area for reports was across this area, and it's kind of in that really line area in which our tornado risk was. This is just a rough estimate. Our tornado risk was kind of really across this area. Man, that is not a good drawing. Let's go. Sorry about this, but it was really kind of across this area. Now, I know this did extend all the way up into here and everything, but I was just drawing, the line area that most of our tornadoes occurred, it was really across that corridor that we already had centered, with most of our tornado reports coming out of Illinois and Indiana, with a few tornado reports coming over here in Ohio, and a pretty potent wind threat did get going back there in southern Michigan, and that did bring with it a couple tornadoes. So it was definitely a very interesting day, and this is definitely a forgotten day by most people, and it is just devastating what happened to many people. Lives were changed. So this is just not a good thing that happened. Obviously, things happen. We've seen multiple severe weather events this year. In the past, we've seen multiple severe weather events. So, I mean, there's nothing that we can do. I mean, it's going to happen. Lives are going to be devastated and changed. But we just have to push through and get through these tough moments. And I was not going to go without showing you a picture. Now, I did not find very many pictures. This is one of the pictures that I did find. And you can tell this was just like complete devastation to this building. I'm not even sure if this was a home or what it was, but just completely devastating. And Lake Township is close to the town of Millsbury, Ohio. And this right here, let me get my pen to draw it for you. This area right here, this red dot that you see, that is where Millsbury, Ohio is located. And this is just a closer zoomed in image right here on the extreme far right of your screen. That is where Millsbury, Ohio is located. But like I said, this was complete devastation, not a good thing that occurred. So I know people are still recovering from this now, maybe not physically but mentally. I know people are still trying to recover from this, so my prayers go out to those of you that are hurting after this, as this was one of the most devastating tornado outbreaks to ever occur in Ohio. And I know if you're from Ohio, you may not know about this, or there is a very high likelihood that this has scarred you forever and you will always know about this. So just not a good thing that has happened. And it's been a long time since I did a case study, so I thought I'd get back out here and do one. And it has been quite the long case study. About to be closing in on 28 minutes. So with that said, thank you guys so much for watching this case study. If you guys did enjoy it, please consider dropping a like and subscribing. I will see you in the next one. Bye.